What makes me the most qualified or the best candidate would be my experience on the Board of Zoning Appeals. In 2017, Commissioner Cupid appointed me to the board. And being on the Board of Zoning Appeals, it gave me an opportunity to connect with the residents of the district on those issues that are important to them. But not just connecting with the residents, but it also gave me an opportunity over a 3-year period to develop relationships with staff, county staff, stakeholders, and those people that can help move our district forward. It also will reduce the learning curve from day one once I'm elected into office. But the other thing is I am currently engaged in my community. I currently serve as my community's HOA president. I do a lot of volunteer work within the community. So it's not just, well, I'll just leave that there. But yeah, it's my experience on the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Consider future land use planning and zoning. How will you balance the cost of homes in the district so that new housing growth will not be too overly weighted towards housing for low-income residents, but at the same time, not so expensive that only affluent citizens in the future can live in this district?
Well, the way we balance that is you definitely have zoning and zoning overlays. Our community is becoming more and more attractive. And as we go through this process of economic development, we need in putting in place the correct incentives for developers to come in and work with first our neighborhood groups like MIC and ACT on developing and neighborhood planning. You put in place hardcore community engagement agreements, as well as agreements within the TAD incentives themselves. And then you need to have the backbone to hold those developers to those agreements. A minimum percentage of workforce housing units at levels that are 60, 70, 80% of the area median income. Public space, green space requirements, sidewalk requirements.
Time.
Question. And honestly, I think the city of Atlanta is doing something called inclusionary zoning. And it's basically what Mr. Hunt was talking about, where you have a threshold where you have 10% of families housing that's going to be laid out for the 60% AMI and also 50% for 80%. And so I think that's something that the county needs to do. I think by answering that question, I also want to admit that the county is also behind on a lot of other things, as in bail bond reform. You see Athens Clarke County, that's over there, Athens Clarke, obviously. And they've already said a bail bond reform, and I think that's something that we really need for the community, because we keep talking about, and community members have these events, and they've had an event to help people who are getting out or need their record wiped. But I think we need to figure out what are these small things that people are getting pulled over that we need to say, hey, this isn't worth them going to jail. We need this bail bond reform now. And I know that's not the answer, but that's one of my answers.
So the housing industry is definitely picking up here in the area and the market, and to have affordable housing for workforce people such as police officers, teachers, EMS, emergency response is definitely very important in order for our community to be vibrant and continue to grow. One thing I'm also worrying about is our infrastructure. We keep on building these houses. Is our water, is our storm systems ready for all this influx of communities and subdivisions coming in? Also the traffic, we talking about traffic. Transportation was a big discussion here earlier. Again, with all these homes and houses coming in, we have to be mindful to have a plan and set to be ready to engage all these new communities and homes coming in. And of course, sitting on the Cobb County Park and Recreation, I'm a big person and concerned about green space. We got nothing but houses and subdivision where we're gonna play, walk, and have fun. So again, we have to put plans on how these developers accountable so they just don't come in, make their profit, and walk out, because we'll be left here with devastation on what they might have done. Thank you.
Go back to Magnolia Crossing, which is a mound of clay for us in terms of creating mixed-use development there, in terms of creating different levels of housing that can accommodate not just the affluent, but those that do have income problems and those in the middle. We can also create a situation where we're providing housing for police officers, for seniors, for vets. We can explore the possibilities of creating areas with tiny homes. But we have an opportunity to create whatever we want. We have a blank sheet of paper when it comes to Magnolia Crossing. And so we can turn around and put whatever we want on that sheet of paper, and we can try to make all boats float in terms of bringing that economic development, bringing that affordable housing. And, you know, that's the term that gets kicked around, affordable housing, but what does it mean to somebody who cannot afford to pay a mortgage, cannot afford to be in a house? So we have to look at all of those elements and figure out how we can make sure that we take care of the least of us, as well as the seniors and our vets and our police officers. Thank you.
It has to be a balance. In order to stabilize our schools and stabilize communities, we're going to have to make an intentional effort to get more families into stabilized homes. And that means, yes, we're going to have to make sure that we build housing that that people can afford to pay on their wages. Believe it or not, just so you know, the apartments that exist in South Cobb are not low-income apartments. They are not based on your income. The average amount for a one-bedroom apartment right now is $800 a month. 2 bedrooms is $1,000 a month. 3 bedrooms is $1,400 and above. So yes, when you think about your mortgages right now, most of you probably not even paying mortgages at $1,000 or $1,200, but your renters are. And the reason why they're moving in and out, because the landlords want their money within 30 days. If they don't have it, they'll file eviction. So to avoid that, we have to create opportunities for renters who are paying that amount to become homeowners. Thank you very much.
Really a balancing act with the mixed housing and trying to satisfy the workforce community, low income housing and medium income housing. But as your question suggests, we have a blank slate when it comes to the zoning. So there should be zoning that will allow low income housing. There should be zoning that should also allow higher end homes. But it comes a question of how do you marry the two? Because District 4 is a very diverse community. We have very diverse needs, and those needs also boil down to housing needs. So, you know, I would say that we need to take a really close look or a close look at our comprehensive plan, at our zoning and land use, and see what type of solutions we can come up with that would satisfy our residents of the district.
This is a unique issue, and I will point to Perry Boulevard for the precedent. And that is a situation where Brock Home is built, $300,000 homes, and you know our median income is, our median home prices are at $280,000. Residents, we've seen that they're not willing to slow down. But what has happened over on Perry Boulevard is that they have mixed use housing, $300,000 homes right next to beautiful townhomes where there are incentives, where people making $50,000 a year are living in the same homes with the same faucets as someone making $35,000 a year. And so we have to look to other areas to see how they're doing it, and we need to break up our red lines. We cannot, I like the fact that we have 50 acres at Magnolia Crossing, but I would want those residents to have opportunity for home ownership, bring them out of that area, out of that red line district until we can turn it around.
How will you protect the residents of unincorporated parts of the district from being annexed into existing cities?
Well, the residents would have to protect themselves by a vote. Once it goes on the ballot, at that point, the community would have to decide. And as I suggested earlier, I really urge people to read the feasibility study. It's up on the website on South Cobb Alliance, and I also believe that MIC has it on its website. But not just the City of South Fulton's feasibility study, but also the Smyrna feasibility study, because in their study will be parts of District 4. So I would encourage people to read it, decide on what would be best for you and your family.
The people of the residents to vote. I guess a petition has to go out asking the community or the HOA, do y'all want to become a part of this municipality? where I think you need about 100%, but I think 75 will get you annexed into the situation. But again, let them educate what they're going to get. Educate the people. What are you going to get? How your taxes are going to be affected? Is your services going to be increased? Educate them on what's the cost of getting annexed into this area. Is to educate them. But again, those decisions are based on the majority of those people in that area.
Taxation, I think it's a morale issue with our residents, and it destroys morale when they get annexed. So as I said before, I would be aggressive in that recruitment process. One of the things that I think that we need a portal that gives us our identity so that developers coming in can understand where we want to go and in terms of our future land use and zoning. But it also gives residents that identity and understand who we are. And so they're less likely to be annexation when we are a strong community in ourselves. And as an unincorporated commissioner, a commissioner for the unincorporated areas, I'd make sure that we have that brand that we are looking for, and so that we have that ambassadorship about our area. And so when it does come to a vote, it doesn't go forward because we spent the time to
Thank
Yes, the residents will have to become educated. They will have to, educate each other and let them know about the process. And if they all in agreement, then yes, they will have to be for annexation. But if they're not, then no. But definitely they have to say something. Don't just sit there and be passive. Don't sit there and just say, oh, let's wait and see. They will have to say something in order to either stop it or to have annexation happening. So it all comes down to, like I've done in the past, offering civic engagement workshops where you learn about the process. And that's what it comes down to. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
People that push these things onto our community rely on, and that's complacency of the residents, the voters, the community. I would educate the public. I would turn around and have community engagement. I would talk about the pros and cons and have honest discussions with the folks who will vote on whether this happens with our community. I think one of the things that happened with us when we were fighting the waste transfer station, that company was secretly trying to get a slub pass without our knowledge. But for the fact that someone brought it to my attention, the first day that we went down to contest the vote, it was me and one other person there. And by the time we got to the final vote for that, I had rallied the community and we had over 70 people there. So it's about educating the public. It's about making sure that we know what's happening to our community. And it's about stopping these folks from continuously thrusting things on us that are not good for our community.
Thank you, everybody. So my response is the county gives the cities about $40 million a year, correct? And so I think the county has to establish a policy or format to follow so that they can make sure that those people who are going to be annexed know more than just one mailer, but have the opportunity to get out there to actually know, like, this is what's going on, this is the reason why you're going to be annexed, and this will be the result of that. So I think because the county is already helping out the cities, we need to have that communication. And to add on to that, I know the mayors of Austell and Smyrna do want there to be a 6-year SPLOST, and I completely am for that. We need that because the 6-year SPLOST we don't need to come back every 5 years. 6-year SPLOST is going to help out the community. So.